What if the most powerful weapon in human history wasn't fire or steel or the atomic bomb, but our ability to gossip and believe in ghosts?
I mean, it sounds totally absurd when you frame it like that.
Right, it really does.
But when you actually dig into the anthropological record, you start to realize something deeply unsettling. The stories we invent, the fictions we tell each other, they are the literal foundation of the modern world.
Yeah, and welcome to the deep dive. You told us in your notes that you've been fascinated by how society is structured today, why we follow laws, why we stress about our jobs, and, well, how a fragile, hairless ape ended up dominating the planet.
Exactly.
So to answer that, we have to look at the invisible strings pulling your life right now. Today, our mission is to unpack Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind by Yuval Noah Harari. We're going to try and solve the ultimate mystery of how humans went from these, insignificant underdogs cowering in the African savanna to the planet-altering rulers of Earth.
And we can promise you this, over the course of this deep dive, your entire perspective on history is going to shift.
Oh, absolutely.
The way you view your daily anxieties, your relationships, and even, the literal money in your pocket, it will all completely change once you understand the hidden and sometimes totally accidental mechanisms of our past.
Yeah, because before we get into how we currently rule the world, we have to look at where we started. And let me tell you, we did not start at the top.
No, not at all.
For millions of years, humans were completely insignificant. We were planted firmly in the middle of the food chain, right? Having no more impact on our environment than, say, gorillas or fireflies or jellyfish.
That is one of the most vital things you have to understand about prehistoric humans. We look around today, and because we have skyscrapers and smartphones, we just assume we've always been this dominant apex predator.
Right, the king of the jungle.
Yeah, but a million years ago, humans lived in constant waking terror of predators. We rarely hunted large game. I mean, we subsisted mainly by gathering plants, scooping up insects, and basically eating the carrion left behind by other much more powerful carnivores.
The bone marrow example from the text really drives this home for me. I want you to picture this. You're an early human, and you spot a giraffe that just got taken down by a pride of lions.
A terrifying scenario.
Right. You don't dare go near it. You wait patiently in the bushes, terrified. Then the hyenas and jackals move in to scavenge the leftovers. And you still wait.
Because they kill you too.
Exactly. Only after they are completely done would you and your band cautiously approach the carcass. And what's left for you?
Just the bones.
Just the bones. Use your stone tools to crack open the bones to get to the marrow, because it was literally the only edible tissue left that you could safely access.
What's fascinating here is the mechanism of how we left that middle tier, and specifically, the speed of our evolutionary leap.
Right, because it was fast, wasn't it?
Incredibly fast.
Yeah.
Other animals at the top of the pyramid, like lions and sharks, they evolved into that apex position very gradually over millions of years. That slow progression is crucial because it enables the ecosystem to develop checks and balances.
So, as lions got deadlier, gazelles evolved to run faster.
Exactly. And rhinos got more bad-tempered. But humankind ascended to the top so spectacularly quickly that the ecosystem simply wasn't given time to adjust. We jumped from the middle to the top almost overnight in evolutionary terms.
And wait, because we jumped so fast, we didn't give ourselves time to adjust either, right?
That is the core of the issue. Top predators of the planet are usually majestic, confident creatures. Millions of years of dominion have filled them with, biological self-assurance. Sapiens, by contrast, are more like a banana republic dictator.
Oh, wow. A dictator.
Yeah. Having so recently been the anxious underdogs of the savannah, we are full of fears and insecurities over our position. We are constantly looking over our shoulders.
Which makes us dangerous.
Highly dangerous. It is the root of so many historical calamities, from deadly wars to ecological catastrophes. We aren't confident rulers. We are terrified, over-armed apes.
Okay, let's unpack this, because there's another massive skeleton in the human closet that adds to this underdog image. Literally.
Skeletons, plural.
Right. Skeletons. Because we weren't the only ones out there. When you look around today, it's just us, Homo sapiens. But for most of our history, up to around 10,000 years ago, there were up to 6 different species of humans walking the earth at the exact same time.
It's wild to think about.
It's like looking around today and seeing elves and dwarves walking down the street. We had actual siblings, but we've completely suppressed the memory.
We absolutely shared the globe with a whole diverse family of humans, You had the fearsome Neanderthals in Europe and the Middle East who were muscular, big-brained, and adapted to cold climates.
Right.
You had Homo erectus in Asia who survived there for close to 2 million years. And you even had a dwarf species, Homo floresiensis, on the island of Flores in Indonesia. They evolved to a maximum height of only 1 meter because they were trapped on an island with limited food resources.
Hang on, I have to push back here. If we were these weak, anxious underdogs alongside massive muscular Neanderthals, how are we the ones recording this deep dive? How did we survive?
That's a great question.
Because I know we had big brains, but the text points out that early on, those brains were actually a massive liability.
Oh, they were a catastrophic energy drain. In Homo sapiens, the brain accounts for about 2 to 3% of total body weight, but it consumes a staggering 25% of the body's energy when the body is at rest.
25%, just for thinking.
Yeah, and archaic humans paid for these large brains in 2 ways. First, they spent more time searching for food. Second, their muscles actually atrophied.
Wait, really?
Yeah, the body physically diverted energy from the biceps to the neurons. A chimpanzee can't win a debate with a Homo sapiens, but it can rip a human apart like a rag doll.
And it gets worse because we started walking upright. Standing up meant we could scan the savannah for predators and free up our hands to throw stones or make tools. But our skeletal scaffolding wasn't built to support a massive head on a vertical column. We paid for it with backaches and stiff necks. And for women, the biological cost was extreme. Walking upright required narrower hips, which constricted the birth canal right at the exact evolutionary moment that babies' brains and heads were getting bigger.
Which forced a massive evolutionary shift.
Yeah.
Death in childbirth became a major hazard. So natural selection favored women who gave birth earlier when the infant's brain and head were still relatively small and supple.
Wow.
Because of this, compared to other animals, human babies are born entirely prematurely. Think about a colt. It can trot shortly after birth. A kitten leaves its mother to forage after a few weeks. But human babies are completely helpless, demanding constant care and feeding for years.
This is such a great aha moment for anyone wondering why human society is so complex today. Premature birth meant a mother couldn't forage and carry a helpless infant while running from predators.
She needed help.
Right, she needed the whole tribe's help just to survive. Evolution essentially forced us to form strong social ties. And because we are born so underdeveloped, we are like molten glass coming out of a furnace.
That's a great way to put it.
A colt is born a horse, but a human can be spun, stretched, and shaped by society. That's why we can educate our children to become capitalist or socialist, warlike or peace-loving. We are born ready to be programmed.
But here is the friction. Those big, socially programmed brains still needed a massive amount of fuel. And you can't fuel a 25% energy drain on gathered berries and raw roots.
No.
That brings us to the ultimate game changer, the biological cheat code, the domestication of fire. Around 300,000 years ago, our ancestors started using fire on a daily basis.
And it wasn't just for light or warmth or scaring away lions. Fire was functionally an external stomach.
Yes.
Cooking our food was a revolution. Things we couldn't digest in their natural forms, like wheat, rice, and potatoes, became staples. But more importantly, the physical act of eating changed. Chimpanzees spend 5 hours a day just chewing raw food.
5 hours.
Cooking meant we could chew and digest food in a fraction of the time.
And the biological trade-off of that cooked food is the crucial mechanism. Cooking enabled humans to evolve smaller teeth and much shorter intestines.
Okay.
Now, long intestines and large brains are both massive energy consumers. It's biologically unsustainable to have both. By shortening the intestines and decreasing their energy consumption, cooking inadvertently freed up the caloric bandwidth required to power the jumbo brains of Homo sapiens.
And beyond biology, fire was the first time humans controlled a limitless force that wasn't tied to their physical bodies. An eagle can ride thermal columns, but can't control the wind. A human with a flint could burn down an entire forest in a few hours.
Exactly. That extra brain power, fueled by easily digestible cooked food, set the stage for something unprecedented about 70,000 years ago, the cognitive revolution.
It's cognitive revolution.
Yeah. Sapiens started doing things no other species could do. We poured out of Africa, we built boats, oil lamps, bows and arrows. We fundamentally changed how our brains processed information.
And what was the secret weapon driving this cognitive revolution? It wasn't a sharper spear, it was language. But specifically, gossip.
Gossip, yes. The new linguistic skills modern sapiens acquired enabled them to gossip for hours on end. Reliable information about who could be trusted, who was a cheat, and who was allied with whom meant small bands could expand into larger, more cohesive groups.
But sociology shows us there is a natural biological cap to this, right?
There is. The maximum size of a group bonded strictly by gossip is about 150 individuals.
Wait, if our biological capacity for gossip naturally caps at 150 people, how do you explain cities of millions today?
Well, that's the thing.
Like, how did Sapiens coordinate enough warriors to wipe out the Neanderthals and conquer the globe? If you look at a business or a military platoon, it falls apart without formal structure once it passes that 150-person mark. So what changed?
This is the critical leap. The true superpower of the Sapiens language wasn't just the ability to transmit information about the physical world, like saying, careful, there's a lion near the river.
Right.
The unique, world-altering feature of our language was the ability to transmit information about things that do not exist at all. Fictions, myths, gods, imagined realities.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because we're not just talking about ancient tribes dancing around a fire. We're talking about the listener's life today. Millions of strangers can successfully cooperate if they believe in the same common myth.
Precisely.
Like two Catholics who have never met can fund a hospital together because they both believe in the same religious story.
And it extends far beyond religion into the very secular structures of our lives. Any large-scale human cooperation is rooted in common myths that exist only in people's collective imagination. A primitive tribe might rally around a lion man spirit guardian, but modern corporate society operates on the exact same mechanism.
Take the car company Peugeot, which the text uses as a brilliant example. Peugeot is an imagined reality. It's what lawyers call a limited liability company. But what is it?
It's a great question.
It isn't the factories, it isn't the cars, it isn't the mechanics. If all Peugeot factories burned down today and all its employees vanished, the company would still legally exist and could borrow money to build new factories.
Let's look at the mechanism of that. In the ancient world, if you opened a bakery and it failed, you were personally ruined. You might be sold into slavery to pay your debts.
That's terrifying.
That physical risk limited how much people would cooperate or innovate. But limited liability separates the individual from the enterprise. It is a legal shield, a complete fiction. Peugeot is a story created by our legal systems that we all agree to believe in so investors can pool resources without personal ruin.
The US dollar, human rights, the justice system, they're all the exact same mechanism as an ancient tribal myth.
They really are.
They are not physical realities. You can't put a human right under a microscope. They only exist in our shared imagination. If everyone stops believing in the dollar tomorrow, it becomes worthless green paper.
When you connect this to the bigger picture, you see why this was our ultimate weapon. This ability to create imagined realities allowed sapiens to completely bypass the slow crawl of biological evolution.
How so?
Well, because our cooperation is based on myths, the way we cooperate can be altered by simply changing the myths. We can change our social behavior overnight without waiting for genetic mutations to alter our DNA.
Oh, like the people of Berlin.
Yes.
Think about a resident of Berlin born in 1900. They could have lived through the Hohenzollern Empire, the Weimar Republic, the Nazi Third Reich, Communist East Germany, and finally a reunited democratic Germany.
In one lifetime.
Right. One person, one biological genome, navigating 5 entirely different, massively complex sociopolitical systems in a single lifetime, simply because the shared stories changed.
And that is why we conquered the globe. A Neanderthal could probably beat a sapiens in a one-on-one brawl. But in a conflict of hundreds, the Neanderthals didn't stand a chance.
Because they couldn't coordinate.
Exactly. They couldn't share stories about tribal spirits or national destiny, which meant they couldn't cooperate in large numbers or adapt their behavior rapidly to changing challenges.
But this raises a massive logistical problem.
Which is?
If we have these massive myth-bonded tribes of sapiens running the world, spreading across continents in groups of thousands, you can't feed thousands of people by foraging in the woods.
No, you definitely cannot.
Massive tribes need massive amounts of food, which forces the next massive pivot in our history, around 12,000 years ago, the agricultural revolution. Now, we've always been taught this was our greatest achievement, right?
We have.
But the text reveals a dark twist. It was a trap. We didn't domesticate wheat. Wheat domesticated us.
It is arguably history's biggest miscalculation. We assume that settling down and farming made life easier, that it was a clear path to progress. But there is no evidence that early farmers became more intelligent or had better lives.
Really? None.
None. In fact, hunter-gatherers had incredibly stimulating and varied lives. They worked fewer hours, had highly diverse diets rich in nutrients, and were less vulnerable to starvation and disease.
Wait, I struggle to buy that. You're calling the agricultural revolution the thing that gave us surplus food, modern medicine, technology, and the ability to record this very deep dive a trap. That's a massive claim.
Let me prove it to you by looking at the daily reality of an early wheat farmer. Suddenly, humans are doing back-breaking labor from dawn to dusk clearing rocks, carrying water under a scorching sun, pulling weeds.
Okay, that sounds awful.
It was. Our skeletal structure, the one that evolved for running and climbing, wasn't built for that. We got slip discs, arthritis, and hernias. And what did wheat offer the individual in return? A terrible diet. Grains are poor in minerals, hard to digest, and terrible for your teeth.
And it offered zero security. If it didn't rain, you starved. If a stronger tribe attacked your village, you couldn't just scatter into the forest like a forager. You were tied to your field, so you had to stay and fight to the bitter end.
Exactly. The extra food didn't translate to better diets or more leisure for the average person. It simply translated to massive population explosions and the creation of pampered elites who took the surplus.
I love the luxury trap analogy the text uses here. It's like the invention of email.
Yes, the perfect modern equivalent. Right?
Invented email to save time. We thought, great, no more writing physical letters, I'll have so much free time. But what happened? It just made us work 10 times faster, raised everyone's expectations for an immediate reply, and made us all more anxious and tethered to our desks.
It really did.
Agriculture was the Stone Age version of email. We made a series of small, logical decisions to get a little more food and accidentally locked ourselves into a treadmill of misery. We thought we were saving time, but we were just raising the baseline of what was required to survive.
It highlights a very cruel evolutionary calculus. The agricultural revolution was undeniably a massive success for the DNA of sapiens. If evolutionary success is measured only by the number of copies of DNA like measuring a company by dollars in its bank account, then farming was a triumph.
The global population skyrocketed.
Yes. But it was a complete disaster for the individual human's happiness. The currency of evolution is simply copies of DNA. It doesn't care one bit about individual suffering.
So, because of the agricultural revolution, we are now permanently trapped in massive villages, which become towns, which become cities, and eventually sprawling empires. And this massive scale creates a new critical problem.
Memory overload.
Exactly. Our biological brains simply couldn't handle the bureaucratic data required to run an empire.
But think about the biological limits of the human brain. First, it dies, and the memories die with it. Second, its capacity is strictly limited. And third, and most importantly, it is evolutionarily adapted to store very specific types of information. A forager's brain is highly optimized to remember thousands of botanical facts. Which mushrooms are poisonous, where the water is, and complex social gossip. But it is completely unequipped to track thousands of citizens' taxes, debts, or vast inventories of grain over decades.
Right. The brain just isn't wired for spreadsheets. When early empires tried to manage millions of farmers, the biological brain overloaded. You can't rely on tribal gossip to know who paid their barley tax last year.
No, you can't.
So, to keep these massive societies from collapsing into chaotic bloodshed, humans had to invent a way to store data outside the biological brain. We invented numbers. We invented writing.
But writing wasn't just a passive recording device. It fundamentally altered how humans think. Before writing, we thought narratively. After writing, especially as partial scripts like numbers evolved into full scripts, we began to think categorically.
We started putting the world into tables, lists, and databases.
Exactly. And alongside this new way of processing data, we needed new, much larger imagined orders to maintain cooperation among millions of strangers who are crammed together and fighting over resources.
This is where we see the rise of immense legal and political fictions. The text compares ancient imagined orders, like Hammurabi's Code in Babylon, with modern ones, like the American Declaration of Independence.
It's a fascinating comparison.
Now, looking at this strictly anthropologically, both of these are imagined orders. Hammurabi's Code established a strict hierarchy of superiors, commoners, and slaves, claiming it was dictated by the gods to create a stable, just society. The Declaration of Independence claims that all humans are created equal and endowed with universal rights.
Right, and from a purely biological, scientific perspective, neither hierarchy nor equality are objective physical truths. There are no natural rights, just as there are no natural hierarchies, coded into the DNA of humans. Biology only knows mutations and adaptations.
So they're both myths.
Yes, but, and this is crucial, these texts, these shared myths, are absolutely essential for human survival at scale. People must believe in a particular order, not because it is objectively true in a scientific sense, but because believing in it is the only way millions of humans can cooperate effectively and forge a stable society.
You enforce the myth through writing, laws, and sometimes coercion, and that shared belief holds the empire together.
Precisely.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Let's pull this incredible journey together. We are, at our core, anxious, middle-of-the-pack apes. We stumbled into the biological cheat code of fire.
We did.
We used the extra energy to power a cognitive revolution, using gossip to build massive fictions that allowed us to cooperate in unheard-of numbers. We accidentally trapped ourselves in fields of wheat, trading our individual freedom for a booming population.
A trap we're still in today.
Right. And to manage the chaos we created, we built vast empires held together purely by the power of our imaginations and the numbers we invented.
Which leaves us with a chilling, awe-inspiring question when we look at the very edges of the timeline presented in the text.
What's that?
If our entire history, from the cognitive revolution to today, has been a continuous, accelerating process of breaking free from our biological limits, using stories, technology, and imagined realities, what happens next?
Oh, wow.
The text hints at a future where the rules of the game change entirely, where intelligent design becomes the basic principle of life.
That is a staggering thought.
For 4 billion years, life on Earth was governed blindly by natural selection. But sapiens are increasingly shaping organisms by intelligent design, bypassing evolution altogether.
So we're becoming the designers.
Yes. Will Homo sapiens use our ultimate superpower, our ability to invent, engineer, and tell stories, to eventually replace ourselves with something entirely different? Will the next revolution be the end of our specific species as we know it?
It leaves you looking at everything around you so differently. The next time you look at a dollar bill in your wallet, or walk past a massive corporate headquarters, or read the news about global politics, remember that you are looking at ghosts.
Very powerful ghosts.
You are looking at the exact same magic trick our ancestors used around the campfire 70,000 years ago. It's all just a story we've collectively agreed to tell. Keep questioning the world around you, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.